I am so excited to welcome my very good friend and colleague to the stage. Please join me in welcoming Sue Choi, Chief Commercial Officer for DevOps Research and Assessment.
Hey, Nathan. Hey. Hi, everyone. My name is Sue Choi, and I have one of those voices that sound angry when I'm actually not. And I'm here to talk to you about changing diversity constructs and my journey as a woman in DevOps. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to do a little storytelling. Let's talk about constructs. I'm going to talk about DevOps, and then I'm going to give you a gift. So diversity. Who doesn't love diversity? You know, a diverse workforce combines workers from different backgrounds and experiences, and we band together, and we breed a creative, innovative, productive workforce, right? We will heart that all day. But in the reality, there are other issues that surround our diversity efforts, and it leaves us a bit exacerbated, fatigued, and defensive, right? And it breaks our hearts. And it's really complicated. It's insanely messy. And it makes us a little uncomfortable, right? What I need you to do is we need to sort of ride that uncomfort. And let's all take a breath. And I need you to ease into that discomfort. I've worked with a lot of you. You've been my clients. I need you to trust me for a little bit. And what I've learned through Disney, and I was just in London at the DevOps Enterprise Summit, and the best way to talk about difficult, complicated situations is through storytelling and a personal story. So let me tell you mine. So I'm an immigrant. My family came here from Busan, South Korea in the 1970s, first to Indiana and then to Florida. And I'm a Gator, go University of Florida. Oh, you guys are like, boo, SEC. I am old. And with that comes a lot of baggage. When I started my career in tech, roaming was real. There was no nationwide cellular network. Do you guys remember this time? What was the cool phone back then? StarTAC? Does anyone remember having a Motorola phone? Yeah, all right, right? These didn't exist, and maybe Uber won't exist, so let's just talk about Lyft. Yeah, so you just hoped your driver knew where you're going, and your cheap company placed you in a hotel that had a low crime area, and like it didn't have bed bugs. And traveling was nowhere near as safe as it is today. So I got in this taxi from the airport, and the driver decided that I needed to meet his mom, and he literally started driving away from the city. And I had to hop out of that taxi and walk to a payphone. And while filling out the police report, I was in this weird area because what he did wasn't necessarily illegal, because there was nothing the police necessarily could do. And so anxiety really became the status quo for me when traveling. And you just become a little weird, right? And it makes you do some artificial things, like handing your itinerary out to all of your coworkers, your family and friends. And you set up checkpoint times to make sure that everyone knows exactly where you are at all times. And then I realized other women in my company did the same things too. And then we started checking in with each other. And then we started talking, and we actually shared lists. Which clients were nice, which clients were nice but grabby, and which clients at nowhere near where you would ever be alone with them. And then there was always one woman who was like, oh no, but you're wrong, he's a nice guy, until she got cornered on the way to the bathroom. And we didn't create these lists because we were mean. We created this list as a means of survival. We were so young. Excuse me. It just, a lot of them just self-selected out. Conferences weren't safe. There was no code of conduct like there is. Go DevOps Days DC. So I talked to a conference organizer about some blatant harassment. And the only thing that he could do at that time was hand me 2 vouchers for free breakfast at the hotel breakfast buffet so I can eat my feelings, which I did. And so what you do is you avoid official conference hotels. Because why? So I sit next to a guy at a keynote, and I said hello, as I do. And so after the keynote, I go back to my hotel room, and he followed me. And it didn't end well for him. And so you become exhausted, right? And so you show up at the client next day, and you're ready to do your scrum planning, and your colleagues are like, ready to get going? And I'm like, no, because I'm exhausted. And they're like, why? And it's like, oh no, because like some dude decided to call my hotel room over and over and over again to talk, or someone decided to bang on my door because he had some important news about the way that we did our agile workflow. So yeah, but hey, I've had an amazing career. I did some great stuff. I got to work at NASA. Who doesn't want to work at NASA, right? Isn't that everyone's dream? I started my own startup. Has anyone heard of Anso Labs? It's okay. It's all right. If you're a space geek, we're sort of cool in that realm. And then we wrote some code that was called Nova at that time, which we open source, and that became OpenStack Compute. Has anyone heard of OpenStack? Yay! All right. And then we got acquired by Rackspace. And so, yay, startup story. So it was time in my career to go back out in the public, right? And so I'm like, all right, here we go. So imagine me on a stage much like this, in a room actually much like this. And so I'm mic'd up, and I'm watching the audience come in, and a gentleman walks up to me and says, there's no coffee. And I'm like, that's cool, because I'm jittery and a little nervous. He's like, you don't understand, there's no coffee. And I just unleashed on him. And then I didn't know that they turned my mic on. And so all the audience heard was me not being very nice to a member of the community. And so it was promotion time. And I was dinged for not representing the company in a professional manner. And that was the story that everyone remembered. No one remembered like marshaling and fighting NASA and teaching NASA about open source, licensing Apache, because at that time NASA was really concerned about open source software, because they thought that, wow, if we open source software, like people will fall from the sky. But it's like, but it's just compute and it's just Python. But yeah, so it was interesting. And then what happens is that you just get insanely angry, right? And it just builds up, all of this, after year. And what happens is that you start looking for people to hurt you, even though they're not. And you start getting insanely aggressive, and you don't know why. And it starts, you start looking at your colleagues differently. You start looking at your friends differently. You start looking at your family members differently. And I got stuck there. And I started taking this anxiety and this exhaustion and this anger and carrying it around with me. But hey, DevOps, right? CAMS. Does anyone know what CAMS stands for? Say it louder. I'm pointing at Derek.
Culture, automation,
Yes.
measurement.
There you go. Sharing, right? Sharing is caring. So the current state, right? So when I was having that, what I'd like to call the coffee incident, Andrew Clay Schaefer, he's now at Pivotal, was like, hey, are you okay? And I'm like, nope. He's like, come sit down next to me. And I'm like, He's like, no, it's going to be okay. And so he's like, you want to talk about it? I'm like, no. He's like, well, I'm just going to talk at you. Is that okay? I'm like, yes. And he's like, let me tell you about DevOps. And then a little bit of light came in, right? And hey, I'm a complicated person. I will always be a little anxious, a little exhausted, a little bit angry. But I think a little bit of happiness will come through. But DevOps is a safe place where we can talk about things. There's not many conferences where I get to keynote about diversity. So what's next, right? Story time over, right? Our popcorn is done. So let's talk about mojitos. So I took Fierce Conversation training. Is anyone familiar with Fierce Conversation training? Okay, Rob has. You will be in a week, great. So mojito is from, and I'm going to slaughter this, but it's spoken in Papua New Guinea, and it's the truth we all know, but we don't talk about. So I'd like to talk about constructs. Constructs is an idea that we all have, but it's actually not based in anything. No metrics, no science. So we as a community need to analyze constructs. And so I would like to propose that the old construct is that the global 100 is going to lead the way for diversity. Well, DevOps was not invented in the boardroom. A guy in a black turtleneck did not tell us we should do the DevOps. I'm going to say the construct here is that as local communities, we will invent new ideas for diversity and inclusion. So look at it. The globals have learned DevOps from us. We are going to teach them about diversity and inclusion, and they're going to learn from us again. And that's going to be totally cool for us. Old construct. We don't know where to start with diversity and inclusion. New DevOps construct. We're going to use our DevOps core principles as a starting point to tackle this issue. So CIOs right now are reading all about the DevOps, right? We've got the State of DevOps report. We've got Effective DevOps with Jen Davis and Catherine, DevOps Handbook, and then everybody's reading Built to Last. Who has read any of these? Raise your hand. All right, right? So Dr. Cole Forstrin, who is also my boss, this is her definition, which I love, because it has lean. It brings in the agile folks. But it's the combo of technology and automation, lean practice and principle, housed in a strong organizational culture, right? To deliver value to organizations. So we're actually tying it in to the business as a whole, to our organizations, and we're bringing it into our local communities. So in 8 short years, right, so DevOps has been around for 8 years, look what you've done with the DevOps movement. You have the ear of your CIO. You actually have the ear of the CIO from what you've done so far. So you have proven to your orgs you can actually spend resources without destroying the entire company. What would happen if you fold diversity and inclusion as part of DevOps in your team? Small batch size, automation, visibility. If you apply that to diversity and inclusion, what would that look like? The wrong question, how do we change? The right question is, what do we stand for? What does DevOps stand for? So the rest these are my ideas. So I'm going to do a caveat here. I am from California. We are known to have different views. Right? So I've got some big ideas, but what we've learned in DevOps, small ideas work too. I am open to big ideas and small ideas. What we've learned is that we've got to think about them all. Big ideas, equal pay for your team. Women earn 80 cents on the dollar a man earns. Seriously, it is so sad. So think about it, year after year, right? Y'all make $100,000, we make $80,000. In 2 years, that's a $40,000 difference. Why? Do you not trust us that we don't know how to spend our money? Think of the single moms you know. That's brutal. Pay based on salary band, not on your formal W-2. So think about it. We make 20% less, and then we're applying for a job, and then you ask us for a W-2. It just makes it worse, right? Can we agree on that? Don't ask. Now you think, oh no, I work for a huge company. That's not going to work. Well, it might work for your team, right? Small batches. Think of what you have control of. Vague performance reviews are a relic of the past, right? I've had a lot of performance reviews where they've used the words like, could do better. What does that mean, right? I want it tied to some business outcome, so I want to do better. Is that a code word for something? How do I compare to my colleagues? Don't use too aggressive in performance reviews. I'd like to talk to someone where there's obviously I'm going through something. I don't recognize it. Maybe I've been triggered. Can someone talk to me? I'd like some real feedback. Or when I give you feedback, because I've been through Fierce Conversations training, I realize, oh, my manager has not been through Fierce Conversations training, so he doesn't know exactly what is happening in the situation. So yeah, there's got to be a clear path to promotion. I think there's a lot of women who are stuck in middle management, and they don't know exactly how to get to that next step. So if you make it clear of how everyone gets promoted on your team, gender-neutral job descriptions. Hey, this could be automated. Textio.com. Believe it or not, this actually works. We've had a couple of startups that have went through it, and they've shown, they're like, oh, wow, 16 instances where they can just do a little tweaking. Spending your own time on researching diversity instead of asking the women to do it for us. No, seriously. So I have a friend who actually has a, this is so sad, she actually has a pre-written email that when people ask her, like, what should I read? She's like, hold, and sends it to them. Like, there's so much out there that you can read and do on your own, but I've also included a link with a at the end if you feel like reading too. Sexual advances, rude comments, and violence will not be tolerated even if alcohol is involved. Mocktails have the same prominence as alcohol, like non-alcoholic sangria. Thanks, DOD, DC. Who had a sangria last night? They're delicious, yes. So, okay, story time. Pikachu, right? We all have one on our team. So I picked Pikachu versus a person, right? So Pikachu, go-to person on your team, right? Follows you along, great team member, is always the first to volunteer to be on call, first to the office, last to leave, pleasure to work with. Everybody loves Pikachu. What if Pikachu got drunk and made an inappropriate comment to a female ops engineer about her foobly-fobblies? Science proves the immediate effects of alcohol are actually loss of coordination, sleepiness, and difficult in multitasking. This is why when you're on call, you are not allowed to drink, right? Everything else is voluntary, and it's actually under conscious control. And I've seen so many instances where something bad has happened when everybody drank, right? And then we discount everything that's happened because everybody drank. But this is the actual reality. This is science. The interesting thing in every situation that I have been in, and you have probably worked in much mature and reasonable organizations, is that everybody was afraid of what Pikachu's reaction was versus the females, and if she was okay. They're like, oh, well, she seems okay with it, but we're worried if Pikachu is going to leave. My reaction is that if you Google DevOps engineer, look how many results come up. I think Pikachu will be fine. I think Pikachu will battle again, right? So don't be Pikachu. Just don't. We can't be the community that just glosses over Pikachu's behavior. And that's what DevOps stands for. And we can sort of set this tone. Just don't be Pikachu. And girl, when in doubt, just go home. Overall, no idea is too small or too weird. Pink conference t-shirts. As a big company sponsor, why don't you just offer free tickets for women or people who actually identify as women to attend a conference, no questions asked. I don't like scholarships because you have to fill out an application and you're pitting women of color against women or men of color. Like, oh, what? No, don't put me against other women. Like, if you want your conference to have 20% women, give 20% of your tickets free to women. Just an idea. Why don't you tweet pictures of your diverse team? We are amazing at tweeting, right? We are amazing at Facebooking everything. Spend some time of talking about diversity. You guys can think of more, and gals. Our parting gift. The Dalai Lama says, just as ripples spread out when a single pebble is dropped in the water, the actions of individuals have far-reaching effects. If you don't like the Dalai Lama, here's my quote. Let's bury diversity and inclusion topic with DevOps one effing pebble at a time. The pebble is a reminder. They're passing out pebbles. I'll give it a second. Thank you for DevOps Days and all of these volunteers. Yes. You get a rock, and you get a rock, and you get a rock. Yeah, the pebble is a reminder that DevOps actually has the power. DevOps can make ripples. We can do something. I'm going to get my rock. You could share your story. I know there's a lot of women out there that you have so many stories, and I'm sorry that this triggered you. I'm here for hugs. I'm here if you just want to talk. Use this pebble just to show up. You can write something on this pebble. You can throw the pebble at Pikachus. I need you to speak up. Just do something every day. What I'd like to do next year in the open spaces is I would like not me, but someone else to write on that board to do pebble stories of what you've done. Thank you.